Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the solitary oasis of the bathroom, where privacy enveloped like a comforting blanket, Waylon found herself in an unprecedented ritual. Her eyes, usually keen and focused on words and characters, now gazed into the mirror, reflecting uncertainty and anticipation. The atmosphere was serene, illuminated by a subtle radiance, as if the bathroom lights had conspired to encourage Waylon's bold endeavor. In her grasp, an eyeliner pencil became the instrument of transformation, its sleek darkness contrasting with her unsteady fingers. The sense of unfamiliarity was palpable. This tool of femininity felt alien against her rough, writer's hands that had spent countless hours crafting stories, not adorning themselves. As Waylon paused, her breath held captive in her lungs, she realized this moment was more than just an application of makeup. It was a silent declaration of self-acceptance. Years of hiding behind a facade built from flannel and silence had been her male persona's armor. Waylon leaned closer, pencil poised near her lash line. The first attempt was disastrous. The line wobbled and smeared, transforming her eye into something resembling a raccoon's mask. Waylon cursed under her breath, grabbing a tissue to wipe away the mess. She tried again and again, each attempt leaving her more frustrated than the last. "Why is this so difficult?" she muttered, tossing the pencil onto the counter in defeat. Her gaze fell on the crumpled receipt next to the sink, a reminder of the courage it had taken just to approach the makeup counter. The memory of the saleswoman's kind smile and gentle encouragement flooded back, giving Waylon a renewed sense of determination. Picking up the pencil once more, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This time, she allowed her hand to move more naturally, trusting instinct over precision. When she opened her eyes, a small gasp escaped her lips. The line wasn't perfect, but it was right. Something in her reflection had shifted, a spark of recognition igniting in her chest. Emboldened, Waylon continued, carefully lining her other eye. With each stroke, she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders, as if she were painting away years of self-doubt and hiding. When she finally stepped back to survey the full effect, tears pricked at the corners of her newly accentuated eyes. For the first time in her life, Waylon saw herself, truly saw herself, in the mirror. The person staring back wasn't the shy, introverted writer the world knew. This was someone new, someone with a hint of boldness in her gaze and a curve to her lips that suggested hidden depths. "Hello," Waylon whispered to her reflection, voice soft with wonder. "It's nice to finally meet you." The following days passed in a blur of experimentation and self-discovery. Waylon found herself spending more time in front of the mirror, not out of vanity, but out of a genuine curiosity to explore this new facet of herself. She watched countless online tutorials, filling a small notebook with tips and tricks gleaned from beauty gurus. Her collection grew slowly but steadily. A tube of mascara joined the eyeliner, followed by a palette of eyeshadows in soft, neutral tones. Each new item felt like a talisman, a small piece of armor to face the world with newfound confidence. One morning, as Waylon carefully applied a sweep of shimmering eyeshadow, she caught herself smiling, a genuine, unguarded expression that she couldn't remember seeing on her own face in years. It was then that she realized this wasn't just about makeup. She was creating something far more profound, a new character, a protagonist for the story of her own life. With this epiphany came a surge of creativity. Waylon found herself returning to her writing with renewed vigor, fingers flying across the keyboard as she poured her experiences into her work. The characters she created began to take on new dimensions, their inner lives richer and more complex than ever before. Her latest novel centered around a character named Mila, a woman who had spent years hiding her true self from the world. As Waylon wrote, she realized she was no longer just creating fiction. She was weaving her own journey into the narrative, using Mila as a vessel to explore the emotions and challenges she herself was facing. There were moments of doubt, of course, times when Waylon would stare at the growing collection of makeup on her bathroom counter and wonder if she was being foolish, if she was too old or too set in her ways to embrace such a drastic change. But then she would think of Mila, of the strength and courage she had imbued her character with, and find the resolve to continue. Weeks passed, and Waylon's confidence grew along with her skill. She began to incorporate subtle touches of makeup into her daily routine, a hint of mascara here, a touch of tinted lip balm there. Each small step felt like a victory, a reclaiming of a part of herself she had long denied. It was on a crisp autumn morning that Waylon decided to take her boldest step yet. She had a meeting with her publisher scheduled, a routine check-in to discuss the progress of her latest novel. In the past, these meetings had always filled her with anxiety, causing her to retreat further into her shell of introversion. But today felt different. Waylon stood before her closet, surveying the sea of muted colors and shapeless garments that had been her armor for so long. Buried in the back, she found a blouse she had purchased on a whim months ago, but never had the courage to wear. Its deep purple color seemed to shimmer with possibility. With trembling hands, Waylon pulled on the blouse, smoothing it over her torso. The soft fabric felt alien against her skin, so different from the rough textures she was accustomed to. She paired it with her usual dark jeans, a compromise between the old and the new. In the bathroom, Waylon went through her now familiar makeup routine. But today, she allowed herself to be a little bolder. The eyeliner wing was sharper, the eyeshadow a touch more noticeable. She even dared to add a hint of blush to her cheeks, the soft pink bringing warmth to her complexion. When she finally looked at her completed reflection, Waylon barely recognized herself. Gone was the shrinking, shadow-dwelling writer. In her place stood someone who looked ready to command attention, to speak her truth without apology.
"You've got this, Mila,"
Waylon whispered, using her character's name like a talisman. In that moment, the line between fiction and reality blurred. Waylon wasn't just playing a part. She was becoming the person she had always been meant to be. The drive to the publisher's office was a blur of nervous energy and second-guessing. More than once, Waylon's hand strayed to the glove compartment, where she had stashed makeup remover wipes, just in case. But each time, she forced herself to return her grip to the steering wheel, knuckles white with determination. As she walked into the building, Waylon felt eyes on her. The receptionist did a double take, her usual perfunctory greeting faltering for a moment. In the elevator, a colleague from the marketing department offered a warm smile and a compliment on the blouse. Each interaction, no matter how small, felt like a victory. By the time Waylon reached her publisher's office, her heart was pounding so loudly she was sure it could be heard through her chest. She paused outside the door, taking a deep breath to center herself. In her mind, she conjured up Mila's strength, wrapping it around herself like a protective cloak. "Come in!" her publisher called in response to her knock. Waylon stepped into the office, chin held high despite the trembling in her knees. Her publisher, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, looked up from her computer. For a moment, confusion flashed across her face, followed quickly by recognition, and then something else. Interest? Approval? "Waylon," she said, rising from her chair with a warm smile. "It's good to see you. You look different, in a good way." The simple acknowledgement was enough to make Waylon's eyes prickle with unshed tears. She blinked them back, returning the smile with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steadier than she had expected. "I felt it was time for a change." As they settled into their meeting, discussing plot points and character arcs, Waylon felt a shift in the dynamic. She found herself speaking more animatedly, gesturing with hands that no longer sought to hide in oversized sleeves. Ideas flowed more freely, and she even dared to disagree with some of her publisher's suggestions, something she had never done before. By the end of the meeting, both women were leaning forward, caught up in the excitement of the story Waylon was weaving. Her publisher's eyes shone with enthusiasm as she said, "Waylon, I have to say, this is some of your best work yet. There's a depth and authenticity to these characters that I haven't seen before, especially Mila. She feels so real, so vivid." Waylon felt a flush of pride and something deeper, a sense of validation that went beyond mere professional praise. "Thank you," she said softly. "Mila is very close to my heart." As she gathered her things to leave, her publisher stopped her with a gentle touch on the arm. "Waylon," she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I hope you know that we support you. Whatever changes you're going through, whatever journey you're on, we're here for you." The words hit Waylon like a physical force, bringing those unshed tears dangerously close to the surface again. She managed a nod and a wobbly smile before quickly excusing herself. In the safety of her car, Waylon finally allowed the tears to fall, but they weren't tears of sadness or fear. For the first time in as long as she could remember, Waylon cried from a place of joy, of relief, of feeling truly seen. As she drove home, the world seemed brighter somehow, full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine before. Waylon found herself taking a detour, pulling into the parking lot of a small boutique she had always admired from afar, but never had the courage to enter. The bell above the door chimed softly as she stepped inside, immediately enveloped by the scent of vanilla and the soft strains of acoustic music. A saleswoman approached with a welcoming smile, and Waylon felt her old instincts kick in, the urge to shrink, to mumble an excuse, and flee. But then she caught sight of herself in one of the many mirrors lining the walls. The woman reflected back at her stood tall, purple blouse, complementing the subtle makeup that brought out the warmth in her eyes. This woman didn't need to run or hide. "Can I help you find anything?" the saleswoman asked. Waylon took a deep breath, channeling Mila's courage once more. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I think it's time for a new wardrobe." What followed was a whirlwind of fabric and color, of stepping out of comfort zones and into new possibilities. Waylon tried on flowing skirts that swirled around her legs, blouses in jewel tones that made her skin glow, and even a dress that hugged curves she had never acknowledged before. With each new outfit, Waylon felt layers of her old self falling away. The saleswoman, sensing the importance of the moment, offered encouragement and gentle suggestions without pushing too hard. By the time Waylon left the store, laden with bags and a lighter wallet, She felt as though she had undergone a transformation far more profound than mere clothing could account for. At home, Waylon carefully hung each new garment in her closet, marveling at the splash of color they brought to the sea of grays and blacks. Her fingers lingered on an emerald green sweater, softer than anything she had ever owned before. On impulse, she slipped it on, relishing the way it settled against her skin. Waylon made her way to her writing desk, where her laptop sat waiting. As she settled into her chair, she realized that for the first time in months, the blinking cursor on the blank document didn't fill her with dread. Instead, she felt a surge of excitement, of stories demanding to be told. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing Mila's world to life with a vividness that surprised even her. But as she wrote, Waylon realized that Mila's journey was no longer just a parallel to her own. It was diverging, becoming its own unique tale of self-discovery and courage. Hours passed unnoticed as Waylon lost herself in the flow of creativity. When she finally looked up, the sky outside her window had darkened to a deep indigo. She stretched, feeling the pleasant ache of muscles that had been still for too long. As she made her way to the kitchen to scrounge up a late dinner, Waylon caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror. The person who looked back at her was someone she was still getting to know, someone with smudged eyeliner from a long day's wear, tousled hair from running fingers through it in moments of writerly frustration, and a soft green sweater that brought out flecks of color in her eyes she had never noticed before. But more than the physical changes, there was something in her expression that gave Waylon pause, a spark of life, of joy, that had been absent for far too long. She realized with a start that she was smiling, not the careful, measured smile she had cultivated for social interactions, but a real, unguarded expression of happiness. In that moment, Waylon made a decision. She pulled out her phone and, before she could second-guess herself, snapped a quick selfie. It wasn't perfect. The lighting was poor, and she was clearly exhausted, but it was real. It was her. With slightly shaking fingers, Waylon opened her seldom-used social media account. She had maintained it mostly for professional reasons, occasionally sharing news about book releases or signings. But now, she found herself composing a different kind of post. "Starting a new chapter," she typed, attaching the photo. "Both in my writing and in my life, excited to share this journey with you all." Her finger hovered over the post button for a long moment. This was it. A declaration to the world, a step there would be no coming back from. Waylon closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and pressed down. The response was almost immediate. Likes and comments began pouring in, a torrent of support and encouragement that left Waylon overwhelmed. Colleagues she had always kept at arm's length reached out with words of admiration for her bravery. Readers expressed excitement to see this new side of their favorite author, and nestled among the responses was a simple heart emoji from her publisher, a silent affirmation of their earlier conversation. As Waylon scrolled through the messages, tears once again blurred her vision. But this time, she let them fall freely, mascara leaving dark tracks down her cheeks. These were tears of release, of joy, of finally allowing herself to be seen and accepted for who she truly was. She thought of all the years she had spent hiding, of the stories left untold because she had been too afraid to give voice to the truth inside her. No more, she vowed. From this moment on, every word she wrote would come from a place of authenticity, every character imbued with the courage she was only now discovering in herself. Waylon turned back to her laptop, the blinking cursor no longer an adversary, but an invitation. She began to type, not the carefully constructed prose of her novels, but a raw, honest account of her journey. It was messy and imperfect, filled with crossed-out words and backspaced sentences, but it was real, and it was hers. As the first light of dawn began to creep through her window, Waylon finally sat back, exhausted but exhilarated. The document before her was unlike anything she had ever written, part memoir, part manifesto, a declaration of self that felt more true than any fiction she had ever created. She saved the file, naming it simply, My Story. Then, with a yawn that cracked her jaw, Waylon made her way to bed. As she snuggled under the covers, still wearing the soft green sweater, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Waylon fell asleep with a smile on her face, eager to greet the new day and the new life that awaited her. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change and self-discovery. Waylon's tentative steps into a more authentic life grew bolder with each passing day. She experimented with different styles of clothing, finding joy in expressing herself through fashion in ways she had never allowed before. Her makeup skills improved, and she began to see her morning routine not as a chore, but as a form of self-care and creativity. But the most profound changes were happening internally. Waylon found herself speaking up more in meetings, offering opinions and ideas with a confidence that surprised even her. She began accepting invitations to literary events she would have once avoided, no longer content to hide behind her written words. Her writing, too, underwent a transformation. The stories that flowed from her fingertips were richer, more nuanced, filled with characters who struggled with identity and self-acceptance in ways that rang true to her own experience. Waylon's publisher noted the change, praising the new depth and authenticity in her work. One sunny afternoon, as Waylon sat in her favorite cafe, typing away on her laptop, a young woman approached her table hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you Waylon Parker? The author?" Waylon looked up, a warm smile spreading across her face. "I am," she replied, gesturing for the woman to take a seat if she wished. The young woman slid into the chair across from her, clutching a well-worn copy of Waylon's latest novel. "I just wanted to tell you," she began, her words tumbling out in a rush, "how much your book means to me. The way you write about Mila's journey, it's like you're speaking directly to my soul. It's helped me find the courage to be true to myself." Waylon felt a lump form in her throat, touched beyond words by this unexpected connection. "Thank you," she said softly, reaching out to gently squeeze the young woman's hand. "Mila's journey is very close to my heart. I'm so glad it resonated with you." They talked for a while longer, the young woman opening up about her own struggles with identity and self-acceptance. As they spoke, Waylon felt a sense of purpose settling over her. She realized that by sharing her truth, both through her writing and by living authentically, she had the power to touch lives and perhaps make the path a little easier for others. When the young woman finally left, clutching her newly signed book and wiping away tears of gratitude, Waylon turned back to her laptop with renewed determination. She had always believed in the power of stories to change lives, but now she understood that power in a way she never had before. As the cursor blinked on the screen, Waylon began to type, pouring her heart and soul into every word. She was no longer just writing fiction. She was weaving a tapestry of truth, hope, and possibility. And with each sentence, each paragraph, each chapter, she was not only telling Mila's story, she was continuing to write her own. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow through the cafe window. Waylon paused in her writing, taking a moment to look around at the bustling world outside. She saw people of all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds going about their lives, each with their own stories, their own struggles and triumphs. In that moment, Waylon felt a profound sense of connection to humanity that she had never experienced before. She realized that her journey, while deeply personal, was also universal. Everyone was on their own path of self-discovery, fighting their own battles to become their truest selves. With this realization came a new sense of responsibility. Waylon knew that her words had the power to reach people, to offer comfort, inspiration, and perhaps even a roadmap for those still finding their way. She vowed to use that power wisely, to create stories that would resonate with the deepest parts of the human experience. As she packed up her laptop and gathered her things, Waylon caught sight of her reflection in the cafe window. The person looking back at her was someone she was still getting to know, but someone she was growing to love more each day. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for the first time in her life, Waylon was excited about the chapters yet to be written. She stepped out into the fading light of day, her heart full and her mind brimming with stories waiting to be told. The world seemed full of possibility, and Waylon was ready to embrace it all, one word at a time.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!